This is going to be a first in a series of videos put together to show how to set up CAC authentication, or what we call another word for it is PIV, personal identification. And it requires that the browser has a client-side certificate in it, and usually you do that with a CAC card that supplies a client-side certificate. Or in the case of this demo, what I'm going to do is actually use a client-side certificate that we generated here. And I don't actually have a CAC card, but the simulation's exactly the same. I'm just taking out the fact that I put a card in to get the certificate. So anyway, what the first step that you're going to have done and make sure is working is first, when we'll talk about how we set a lot of this up, but by default, when you go to the login screen for SBM, you don't have this button here. We'll talk about how to get this button in a bit, but when you get this button and you click it, what is going to happen is you're going to get prompted with your client-side certificate. So currently I don't have a client-side certificate installed, and so in that case I just get an error, so there's nothing to prompt. So this first video we're going to show you how, at least how I got my certificate in there. And this is assuming you would have had CAC already set up. That's kind of beyond the scope of this from an infrastructure point of view. But this certificate right here, if I import it into as a current user and I just go through the steps, I've included this certificate in the KB doc just in case you wanted to use it, but we'll enter it, we'll put it in here, and we'll just make sure it goes into our, we want it in our personal store. It would have went in there by default anyway, and click finish, and it's successfully imported. So with that said, you can tell this is going to work with two things. One is when you get this set up, if you click this button, see how you get now prompted for a certificate, and you may have more than one, but this is the one we're going to use, and you would hit OK, and when things are working you would get logged in. So in regards to that certificate, you'll see it under Internet Options and Content, and you can see in your personal area here that you have this certificate. So just to take that full circle, we'll just actually log in with that. So when I click Smart Login, hold on a second, this is a trick you have to learn with IE. You can come in here, and if you'd hit cancel or pick the wrong certificate, it holds on to your session, so you can clear the SSL state here by pushing that button. Now if I go back to my login screen and click this button again, I'll get prompted, and what it's going to do is log me in as a user. So we'll go through the rest of how to set this, how to set the behind the scenes part of this up, but this first video was just basically how to get the certificate into IE and what's going to have to happen for it to work. This might take a second to start. I restarted a bit ago. Okay, so then you get logged in, and I'm logged in as this user is a PYOO. One other thing that you have to do to make, we're going to have to set up a little infrastructure later, is if you look at that certificate, we're going to need to import the certificate chain, if you will, into JBoss, which is going to be controlling this a little bit. So what you want to do is first view the certificate, click view, and if you go to the certification path, you'll notice that this is our certificate. It was issued to us by this intermediate, and what you want to do is view this one and copy it to a file, okay, and go through this whole thing here, and we're going to put it in this case, we're going to put it into this folder here called client certs, and this one is actually our intermediate one, so I've already set it up, but you just give it a name and save it. Okay, And then you have to do the same thing with this one, which is the root. So we have to trust the certificate all the way up to the root, and we will do the same thing here and copy it to a file. And anyway, this one's called root in that same folder. We're going to use this in a bit in the next video to set up the JBoss part of SSO, so it actually will trust this certificate. Okay, so that's all you have to do from the certificate point of view from the client side. And again, you have to make sure that that's all set up in the browser and functioning, or else nothing else is going to work after that. So that's the first video, and the next one's going to be more into we'll talk about how to get that button on the login screen, and we'll talk about actually how to make things, this button right here, and we'll actually talk about how to get the rest of it to work.